What if Deku was the son of Midnight? And before I start this, sorry if I just randomly pause. I'm starting to get the hiccups right now, so I'm sorry if that interrupts me talking. Now, where I left off, Izuku and Bakugo just fought in the UA Sports Festival, with Izuku coming out victorious. Now, one very tall person would have watched this on a TV, and this person would be Sir Night-Eye, as he would write Izuku down for the internship, as he would say that that's the one person he thinks should come to do the internships at his place. So Izuku, of course, would choose Night-Eye because All Might would pressure him into doing it, because All Might, I'd say, is kind of scared of Night-Eye, or just on edge around him because of the event that happened when All Might got injured, and Night-Eye would tell him that the path All Might was going on would lead to his death. Now, Izuku going to Night-Eye's place, as Night-Eye would then explain how Izuku has great potential. From there, Night-Eye would explain how there's this villain named Overhaul that is on the loose and how they need to catch him, as they suspect he possibly has some type of girl there with him as well. Now, Izuku, of course, would think that that's terrible and that he really wants to save this girl. So he would go out patrolling with Mirio, as they would end up running into Overhaul just like they did in canon, but a little earlier. Now, Overhaul would have known who Izuku was because of the UA Sports Festival. So, since Overhaul knew who Izuku was, would pretty much just try to take care of Mirio quickly, having one of his guards knock Mirio out, and then taking Izuku with him. Izuku would then be placed into Irie's bedroom. As he would wake up, this Overhaul would then take a syringe, stick it into Izuku's neck, get some of his blood, and then kick Izuku out of where he was, as Overhaul would then start to examine what Izuku's blood looked like, as he knew what Izuku's quirk was. It was a quirk erasing one, and now since they have some type or a little bit of his cells that are the quirk cells, then they have a chance to try to recreate this erasing quirk thing. So Izuku would end up making his way back to Night-Eye's place, as he would then tell him how he was kidnapped by Overhaul and how they took part of his blood, as Night-Eye would then say how that's not very good, as they're probably going to start to develop some sort of quirk killing gas, as something Izuku has a quirk canceling gas, but since they now have part of Izuku's quirk cells, they now could possibly enhance that to make it quirk killing cells or whatever, something like that. Now, the week would pass with Izuku going back to UA, as they would tell them that they have 5 weeks until the final exam, and that they all have that time to go train. Izuku, of course, would train with his mother and father, and wouldn't forget to also study. Now, from there, Izuku would then go after the 2 weeks back to the UA to do the final exams. He'd easily pass the written exam, and then it would be time for the hero exam. Now, Izuku, of course, this would be a quick fight against Izuku and All Might and Bakugo, as Bakugo would charge right at All Might, which would just get him smacked away. So Bakugo would then say, "What the hell are you waiting for, Izuku? Just use your quirk-canceling gas or whatever on him." And he'd just be a quirkless person. As Izuku would then say, "Sure," as he would use this gas on All Might, which would cause All Might to poof into Small Might, as he'd be like, "Whoa, what?" As Izuku would then place handcuffs on All Might, as he would then say that the entire class knew his secret, just didn't bother to tell him, as All Might wasn't very good at keeping the secrets that he held. Now, Izuku, from there, cuffing All Might, would walk him out, as everyone would just start praising Izuku and Bakugo more rather Izuku, for beating All Might, as it was just thought as insane, but most people thought he probably could have done it since he has a cork canceling cork. It's kind of weird to say. As Izuku would just watch the rest of his class do that test, as some of them would fail, but most of them would pass. From there, Aizawa would then tell them that they all have a week to do, or to just wait out until their summer training camp begins. Now, one thing I kind of find strange, I believe it was called the summer training camp and those were called the finals, and yet they're still class 1A and not like class 2A. That's kind of weird. Just thought I'd say that. Now, Izuku, of course, wouldn't really do anything but training, as he would then go to the UA, as they would all pile onto a bus and would start driving through the mountains. Many hours later, they would end up on the side of a cliff around 3 p.m. From there, they would kick all of the students off of the bus, as they would then see the wild pussycats, as they, or one of them, would just slam their hand on the ground, causing the entire earth to shake. Well, not entire earth, just some of the mountain where they were standing, and that part would just collapse under them, causing Class 1A to fall down under the cliff. From there, Izuku would have to make a plan to try to fight the monsters, the mud monsters that were there, as he just thinks he should probably just stay back behind. Sure, he's good at fighting, but there's people with a higher power quirk that could possibly easily beat those types of monsters. So Izuku would just stay behind walking, as the rest of the class would just defeat all of the mud monsters, even Mineta defeating 1 or 2, as Izuku would then get there with the rest of the class tired out from 3 hours worth of just destroying all of these monsters, as Izuku would just go sit down, as he would see dinner all spread out through the picnic tables, as he would just sit down and start eating, as the rest of the class would hurry over to start eating as well. Many of them asking why Izuku wasn't really tired, as he would just say that he just decided to stay in the back and not really fight. He was just really lazy, as he was really tired from when he got up at 3 a.m. to train, as they would just be like, oh yeah, that's right. As Izuku would finish his food and then go back into the hot springs to just try to chill out, with the rest of the guys and the girls going into separate ones, as Izuku would then see Mineta climbing up the wall with his pop-off quirk. Izuku would then just look at Mineta, as he said, Mineta, you complete idiot, you really think I'm gonna let you do that? As Izuku would simply look at Mineta, which causes Mineta to fall over, just pass out, as Izuku is stronger than Mineta physically, so he can easily just look at him and make him pass out. Man, that'd be a good quirk for a villain. As Izuku would then just laugh as he'd say, man, Mineta really is an idiot if he thinks he can actually get over that wall. I'm sure the heroes would punish him, maybe even expel him if they caught him doing something as stupid as that. As the rest of the boys would agree with him, as Izuku would then get out to go to sleep, as he waits for the next morning to come. From there, he would get up at 3 to train just like always, as he would then just start sleeping under a tree. Now, from now until a week after, all they would do was just get up, train for a long time, make lunch, eat lunch, train even more, make dinner, eat dinner. That's all they would do, just constant training, which would cause them to very, very quickly increase in power, as this was sudden for them, but many of them could see the rise in the power that they have been experiencing. And so, now that they're more powerful, the class teachers and the wild pussycats would tell them that they want to give them some sort of a free night instead of full of training. So they're going to have a sort of scare game. Class 1A is going to wander around the woods, while Class 1B is tasked with scaring anybody. And if you scare somebody, bring them back to here, so we can know who is the person that is not scared the most, or some stupid thing like that, which all of Class 1B would just agree to, as they would walk out just trying to find people to scare. Now, of course, this is when the villains would attack, as Izuku would notice a massive blue flames all over like the mountains, as Izuku would just think, oh no, I think we're getting attacked by villains. Look, there's a ton of blue fire up there. As they would then hear, well, you figured us out that quickly, as Aisawa would then capture the Dabi, fake Dabi rather, in his capture gear, as it would just turn into sludge, which if you don't know, that's twice as quirk, like having a double twice. Now Izuku would just start releasing as much of his quirk canceling gas as possible, as he sees the fire start to decrease, as he would then think that he would then tell the heroes that they have 30 minutes to gather up all the students and capture most of the villains before it gets out of control. They would start to run around, gathering up as many people as possible, Izuku defeating Muscular and saving Koda, while Pussycats would go around easily saving the kids from Mustard. Toga would get away, Mr. Compress, Magni, and Spinner would also get away. A lot of people would get away. One of the only people that actually were caught were Mustard and Moonfish. But in the 5 minutes it took Izuku to notice, 2 people happened to be captured. Bakugo Katsuki and Shoto Todoroki. And now a quick ad break before I get right back into this what if. Is over, we can get back into this what if. Now we cut to Bakugo and Shoto Todoroki being locked into their quirk erasing chairs, as the League of Villains would start to question them, asking them a certain few amount of questions. Shigaraki, of course, saying, wouldn't you like to beat that Izuku? He humiliated you in the sports festival. Wouldn't you like to get back at him and maybe even kill him? To which Bakugo would then yell, he'll never join you low-life thugs, as they would then look over at Todoroki, as they'd start to explain how the number 2 hero basically just abused him for his entire life, trying to make Todoroki a tool so that he can become number 1, because Endeavor never could have. Which Todoroki would of course just calmly say no, as the League of Villains would just become frustrated about this, as they'd and say that they'll give them time to wait before they'll ask again, or they'll give them time to make their decision. Now 2 weeks would pass of them just sitting there straight up just bored watching the League of Villains talk, as they would then hear a knock on the door. Shigaraki, not expecting anybody, would hesitantly go to grab the knob and open it, only to have the door to be punched down, as a smiling yellow figure would appear. Donald, All Might. Live chat's gonna be like, what? All Might. As All Might would then just say, I am here. Give back young Bakugo and young Todoroki, or else you'll have to pay. As the rest of the villains would instantly get captured by Kamui Woods. I don't know how to pronounce it. Like I've said many times before, I cannot pronounce things. As Izuku would then hop in, using most of his quirk erasing gas to erase many of the people's quirks. Now Izuku released so much of it that this gas just caused nobody in the area to be able to use their quirk. To which Izuku would then basically tie up all of the villains, put them into an armored truck, as they would then be towed off to Tartarus. Now, if you're wondering what if All for One would then get there, but All for One was a little whiles away, like all the way across the city in another warehouse full of Nomus. That's why he had to use a gray portal to try to get back to where the League of Villains hideout was. But since Izuku used so much of his quirk erasing gas, it wasn't possible for him to get back to where he needed to be to try and save his league. From there, it would then take him 30 minutes to get back to where they were, hoping that they were still there, trying to question them, but no. The only people that were there were Heroes and Izuku. Now, from there, All for One would then engage in a fight with All Might, as All Might would then start to yell at Izuku that All for One is not a very strong man, as he is just reliant on his quirk. Sure, All Might is too, but All for One is fully reliant on his quirk. He has many quirks that just cause him not to be able to die. If he was able to erase all of those quirks, or have most of his quirk erasing gas be just absorbed into All for One, it could basically just easily just defeat him. To which Izuku would nod and start to release as much of this quirk erasing gas as possible, which would then cause basically All for One to fall to his knees, not before punching All Might into a building, as All for One would start violently coughing. This is it, huh? Finally gonna die. Well, I'm fine with that. That bratty Shigaraki was never gonna be a real leader anyway. As All for One would then collapse, as Izuku would walk up to him and feel his neck. It was cold to the touch, and Izuku could not feel a heartbeat. It was true. All for One was now dead. Possibly the biggest threat in all of their universe was gone. He no longer existed. As basically they'd all just walk home confused, as Izuku would just be wondering, did he kill him? Was that him who killed him? It couldn't be, right? He died because of his quirks just being erased. There was no way Izuku killed a man, did he? Izuku would push these thoughts aside, saying he'll think about that later. Now, after this, Aizawa would then tell them that they have to get their quirk licenses. But since Izuku and Todoroki are both the children of heroes, they have a different certain test. They have to go up against one of the top 20 heroes. Now, this hero, let's just say, is Gang Orca, because Gang Orca was there when he had to do the quirk license exam, so it will be Izuku and Todoroki versus Gang Orca to get their license test, or their license for using their quirk. So Izuku and Todoroki would be placed in a room with Gang Orca, as Izuku would then just start filling the room with quirk erasing gas. Sure, Izuku's kind of reliant on it, but he could still fight hand-to-hand combat even without his quirk. As Izuku would then start to think in his head, he hasn't used his knockout vision in a very, very long time, as it's almost useless to him when he has such a powerful first quirk. As he would then, not thinking, would get punched by Gang Orca, who would notice how he's visibly not as strong as he should have been. As he would then think out loud as he said, "Oh, so you're the kid with the quirk erasing gas, huh? Guess I'm fighting this quirkless. You too, Todoroki." As Izuku would then engage in a fistfight with Gang Orca, and eventually Izuku and Shoto Todoroki were able to come out on top, both overwhelming Gang Orca and thus defeating him, just giving them their quirk licenses. Now from there, they would go back to UA, as Aizawa would then tell them that before they go home, they have 3 people to meet. This person, a yellow-haired boy looking like Tintin, is Mirio Togata. Then you have Nejiro Hado, I can't remember, and Tamaki. as they would then introduce themselves as the Big Three of UA, as Izuku would then confidently say he could probably take all three of them on, to which they would say that they're up for that challenge. They would all walk down into this big barn-looking thing, as Izuku would then start to stretch. He would then start to fill this barn with cork erasing gas, which would basically, it's almost clear, so it would go unnoticed by Mirio, Nejiri, and Tamaki. However, when Mirio went to use his cork, he couldn't really do it, as Izuku would then appear right behind them, say, "You guys really were so focused on using your corks. You didn't notice I was coming right behind you," as Izuku would then double punch Nejiri and Tamaki right in the back of the head, causing both of them to get knocked out. As Izuku would then comment how they haven't trained their physical bodies when they should have in case a villain has a quirk like his. Although it's rare, it could possibly happen. As Izuku would then go up against Mirio Togata, as Izuku then say, "You look strong. Guess this is gonna be a good fight after all." As they would then engage in a fist fight, as each fist would be blocked. It was almost as if they were on equal strength with each other, as Izuku would dodge a punch and then punch Mirio in the stomach, only to have the same thing happen right back to him. As Izuku would basically just continue smiling, as he thinks that this is the most fun he's ever had in a fight before, as it's insane how someone can keep up with him even though they're fighting corkless. But from there, 20 minutes would pass, as both of them would be coughing and huffing, as they are pretty much just exhausted from 20 minutes straight of fighting each other with no progress, as both of them would collapse, being knocked out from exhaustion, not having any more energy to continue, as the rest of the class would just look on at how Izuku is basically one of the strongest kids in the school, being able to compete with even the number one person in the Big Three. So they would then start to think differently of Izuku. Sure, he was the strongest in their class, but now they know he's the strongest in UA, or tied for that title, rather. Now, Izuku would then ask to go back to internship Night Eye, and since he's already done it once, All Might wouldn't really care and would just sign off on it, as Izuku would then go back to internship with him. As Night Eye would then start to explain that they now know that he has a girl named Eri, and that they need to capture him. As Izuku would then nod as he'd walk back to his house, only to be met by a cloth over his nose and mouth, as he would then pass out, waking up in a chair, as Overhaul would then walk out, as he'd say that the sample he got from Izuku was not enough. They now know how his quirk works, and they could possibly enhance it to try and just make it even better, to hopefully one time make the experiment go well and have a quirk erasing just gas, so they can just release it all throughout Japan or even the world, and have the entire world go back to how it should have been, being quirkless, at least in Overhaul's eyes. As Izuku would start to struggle on his chair restraints, not wanting Overhaul to have the blood of such a powerful person, being himself, and not wanting Overhaul to experiment with his quirk. From there, a week would pass with Izuku still having a lot of energy, as Overhaul would then have enough blood to try to recreate Izuku's quirk and implant it into himself, as their experiments have been running smoothly. Since they did not need Izuku, or Eri anymore, they would then just dump them off in a random dumpster, both being knocked out, to which one of the heroes would then discover, both of the people Izuku being missing and Eri just being an unknown person. From there, Izuku would then just wind up in, Night Eye's office, as Night Eye would then tell Izuku what happened, or rather ask him what happened, as Izuku would then say that Overhaul's planning something big, something that could erase all of the quirks, and that they have to stop him as soon as possible. If he was able to get his hands on this, then the entire world could just become quirkless like it was centuries ago or generations ago. To which Night Eye would then agree that tomorrow was the day they would invade and fight Overhaul. Now, Overhaul not really expecting any fight to happen, as he was already almost done with his tests, and he was only focused on that, not focused on any just intruders. So when the heroes struck, they struck hard. Many of the heroes there were just all top 50 heroes smashing into it, as they would just continue to search, easily taking down people very, very quickly, not wanting this to draw on too much longer. From there, they would then get into a big room, as they would see Overhaul experimenting, as he would then look over to see Izuku, Night Eye, and Mirio, as he would then get out a demonetization weapon and load it, as he'd shoot at one of the people with Mirio, who would easily dodge it, as they would then just say, "So, you dodged my quirk erasing bullets. Have a few left after the experiments with Eerie. That doesn't matter now. I have this gas. It can permanently just erase quirks. You'll never give them back." As Izuku would then erase Overhaul's quirk, as Overhaul would then start to feel a shift in his body, as he'd start to think, what the hell's happening? As Izuku would then say, "Well, technically you did use my quirk, so the quirk inside of you is still my quirk. Since it can erase quirks, I'm erasing yours." As Overhaul would then say, No, you can't do this. That's impossible." As Izuku would then walk up to Overhaul, so he'd say, "You shouldn't have messed with that young girl. How would you like it if you got tortured? Huh?" As Izuku would then slam Overhaul's head into the ground, knocking him out. As Izuku would then put cuffs on Overhaul and walk away, as he would then continue to go through UA with the rest of his class, as they would continue to pass through classes and classes and eventually becoming heroes. Izuku, of course, becoming the number 1 hero. If you're wondering what happened to Gentle Criminal, it basically was the same in anime. He tried to strike the play or the festival, the UA festival, as Izuku would end up being able to easily take him down, with La Brava not really having any chance with her quirk erased, not giving Gentle enough energy to continue. So Izuku, now the number 1 hero, and since All Might would basically have no need for All for One anymore, would give it to Izuku, knowing that Izuku now, since he has this quirk erasing quirk, he's now the symbol of peace, and with One for All, he could become much stronger. And that's where this What If ends. I hope you guys did enjoy this What If. It was very fun to make, and I'm sure a lot of you guys did enjoy it, because it got like 10,000 views in the first couple days, which is absolutely insane. And I thank you all for watching, especially you, Talon Rogers. If you are watching, thank you for the $100 dono that you did give me on the last video. And also, here's what my next video or What If is going to be. It's going to come out tomorrow at the exact same time it usually does, and it's going to be What If Deku was the son of Hawks and Murkrow. I thank you all for watching once again, and goodbye.